Elara, do not drink that. Kale's voice cut through the council chamber so sharply that every conversation stopped. Elara froze with her hand inches from the silver pitcher between them. Kale was staring at his cup. He had taken only one swallow, but something in his expression had changed. Kale. The color drained from his face. His fingers loosened, and the cup slipped onto the table, spilling dark tea across the documents they had brought from the old medical annex. Rowan reached him before he could fall, guiding him carefully into the nearest chair. Elara moved forward on instinct. What is happening? Kale's eyes found hers, unfocused but still conscious. Do not drink, he repeated. Then his eyes closed. Call the physician, Rowan ordered. Seal the room. Nobody leaves. A young servant near the wall went pale. Lady Elara gave him the cup. Every face turned toward her. Elara barely heard them. Her attention remained on Kale. Is he breathing? Yes, Rowan said. Stay where you are. The royal physician arrived moments later with 2 assistants. While he examined Kale, Rowan ordered the cup, pitcher, and tray left untouched. Elara forced herself to reconstruct the morning. Kale had been reviewing Dr. Samuel Hart's records when the tea arrived. Councilman Everett Hale had been questioning the references to the Vale name. Mira had been sorting copied files. 2 council aides had stood near Hale, including Daniel Mercer, a young records clerk Elara had seen several times during recent council meetings. The tray had waited on a side table while everyone argued over the documents. The tea had already been poured when Elara picked up Kale's cup and carried it the final few feet to him. The physician looked up. What did His Majesty eat this morning? Rowan answered what he knew. Elara supplied the rest. Breakfast at 7:30. Eggs, toast, coffee. He did not finish the coffee. Water in the library around 9. Nothing else until this tea. Did he complain of feeling ill? No. He was completely normal. The physician glanced toward the spilled cup. No one removes that. Rowan nodded. Nothing leaves this chamber. Kale was carefully transferred to his private rooms. Elara followed until Hale stepped into her path. Lady Elara, remain here. She stared at him. My husband is unconscious. Which is precisely why everyone present must remain available for questioning. Elara looked toward Rowan. He did not contradict the order. His expression had become unreadable, the face he wore when evidence had to matter more than comfort. Is Kale alive? She asked. He is alive. The physician answered from the doorway. And we intend to keep him that way. Only then did Elara step back. Rowan turned to the servant. You said Lady Elara gave him the cup. Tell me exactly what you saw. The servant swallowed. I brought the tray from the service hall. The tea had already been poured. I placed it on the side table. Later, Lady Elara picked up His Majesty's cup and carried it to him. Did you see her put anything into it? No, sir. Did you see anyone else touch it? The servant hesitated. I was not watching the tray the entire time. Elara looked toward the side table. Hale and the aides had been moving around the chamber. Mercer had left once to retrieve a document. Mira had shifted the Hart files away from the tea. Everyone had been focused on the records, not the cups. The physician returned carrying a small testing strip. His expression had changed. The king's condition is consistent with exposure to a concentrated plant compound. Silence settled over the room. Hale looked at Elara, and she carried the cup. Elara finally turned toward him. Fear pressed hard beneath her ribs, but her voice remained steady. Then investigate me. Rowan's eyes met hers. Elara pointed toward the evidence on the table. Investigate the cup. Investigate the tray. Investigate everyone who entered this room. But do not decide what happened simply because I was the last person seen holding it. The physician looked again at the test strip. There is something in His Majesty's cup that should never have been there. Elara did not defend herself. Not yet. Her eyes stayed on the doorway through which Kale had disappeared. What was in the cup? She asked. The physician studied the test strip again. I need a proper analysis before I name it. But his reaction suggests a concentrated plant compound. It can cause severe weakness and loss of consciousness. Can you treat it? If we identify it quickly. That answer mattered more than every suspicious face around her. Then go. The physician hesitated only a second before returning to Kale's rooms. Rowan turned toward the council representatives. No conclusions until we establish a timeline. Councilman Everett Hale, one of the oldest members of the Northern Council, looked at Elara. The timeline begins with the king drinking from a cup his new bride placed before him. The tea was already poured. Elara said calmly. Who poured it? Rowan asked. The servant shook her head. The kitchen prepared the pot. I brought the tray from the service hall. When I entered, Lady Elara took the cup. Did you see anyone touch the tray before that? No, sir. Rowan looked at Elara. Did you? She searched her memory. Cale had been reading Hart's letter. Mira had been arranging copied records. 2 council aides had entered with sealed folders. The tray had remained on a side table for several minutes. No, she admitted. Hill's expression hardened. Convenient. Elara turned toward him. If you believe I harmed him, investigate me. Rowan's gaze shifted to her. Elara, search my rooms. Search my belongings. Ask every question you need. Her voice remained steady even as fear pressed against her ribs. But do not waste time arguing while Cale needs answers. Rowan held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. Mira, supervise the search. 2 witnesses. Everything documented. Hale started to object. The council should control the investigation. The king is still alive, Rowan replied. Blackstone law remains his law. The words silenced the room. Elara was escorted to a small sitting room across the hall from Cale's chambers. It was not a cell, but the guard outside made its purpose clear. Through the closed door, she could hear footsteps moving rapidly along the corridor. Every few minutes, she looked toward the clock. 10 minutes. 15. 20. Finally, Mira entered. Her face revealed nothing. How is he? Elara asked immediately. Stable for now. The physician believes he has identified the compound. Relief came first. Then Elara noticed the cloth-wrapped object in Mira's hand. What is that? Mira placed it on the table, but did not open it. It was found in your room. Elara stared at the small glass vial beneath the cloth. I have never seen that before. It was inside the bottom drawer of your writing desk. Then someone put it there. Mira's expression softened only slightly. I believe you deserve a full investigation before anyone decides what this means. The door opened again. Rowan entered carrying a written report. The preliminary test is complete. Elara stood. Cale. Still stable. Rowan placed the report beside the vial. The substance in this container appears consistent with what was detected in the king's tea. Elara felt the room narrow around her. A cup she had carried. A substance hidden in her room. A husband who could not speak for himself. Hale appeared in the doorway behind Rowan, accompanied by 2 council witnesses. His gaze dropped to the vial and then returned to Elara. Until His Majesty wakes, he said, I formally request that Lady Elara be denied access to the king. Elara looked past him toward Cale's closed chamber door. You can keep me away from him, she said quietly. But first tell me one thing. Rowan waited. Is he getting better? Rowan's answer came after a pause. Not yet. Not yet, followed Elara long after Rowan left the room. She sat beside the window with her hands folded tightly in her lap, listening to footsteps pass outside the guarded door. Every sound made her wonder whether someone was coming with news of Cale. Instead, Councilman Hale returned with 2 other members of the Northern Council. Rowan entered behind them, carrying his notes. The physician is still treating His Majesty, Rowan said before anyone could speak. Elara looked directly at him. Is he stable? Yes. Only then did she turn toward the council. Hale placed both hands on the back of an empty chair. Until the king can speak for himself, we have a duty to protect Blackstone. Then protect it, Elara replied. But do not confuse suspicion with proof. One councilwoman studied her carefully. You carried the cup. A vial containing the same substance was found in your room. Both are facts, Elara said. Neither proves I put anything in his tea. Hill's mouth tightened. You arrived at Blackstone with no recognized bloodline, no verified history, and questions surrounding the name you carry. Now we discover records suggesting you may have been deliberately hidden from the Northern Court. Elara felt the accusation shift. This was no longer only about a cup. Say what you mean. Hale did. If your identity gives you some unknown claim, the king's condition could benefit you. Rowan immediately spoke. There is no evidence that the Crescent records establish inheritance or rank. Dr. Hart explicitly wrote the opposite. And yet the records mention a rightful Alpha King, Hale answered, which makes their political significance impossible to dismiss. Elara stood slowly. Fear still lived beneath her ribs, but humiliation no longer had the power to make her shrink. Yesterday, you did not know what my scars meant. Neither did I. Today, you are using that uncertainty as a motive. Hale held her gaze. We are considering every possibility. Then consider all of them. Rowan stepped between the conversation before it could harden further. Lady Elara will remain under supervision while the evidence is examined. She is not being declared guilty. The councilwoman nodded. Hill did not. When they finally left, Elara remained standing. They already decided, she said. Some of them have, Rowan replied. I have not. Do you believe me? Rowan was silent for a moment. I believe evidence should survive questions. Right now, the evidence against you is not. Elara almost smiled despite herself. It was the most Rowan answer possible. Can I see Cale? Not while the council order stands. Can you tell me what the physician needs? Rowan hesitated. He is trying to determine how much of the compound Cale absorbed and exactly when the symptoms began. Elara looked toward the wall separating her from Cale's rooms. He was fine when we entered the council chamber. We know. No. I mean completely fine. He read 3 pages from Hart's file. He argued with Hale about opening the Northern Archive. He made a joke about Rowan labeling everything twice. Rowan raised an eyebrow. I label evidence correctly. That was approximately what Cale said you would say. For the first time that morning, Rowan almost smiled. Then footsteps hurried down the corridor. Mira opened the door without knocking. Rowan, the physician needs you. Elara's stomach tightened. What happened? Mira looked at her, then at Rowan. His Majesty's condition changed. They need a more exact timeline. Elara moved toward the door, but the guard shifted into her path. She stopped herself. Tell the physician Cale spoke to me immediately before he lost consciousness. Rowan turned back. What did he say? Elara heard the words again with sudden clarity. Elara, do not drink that. Her eyes moved toward Rowan. He knew something was wrong with the drink before he collapsed. Rowan went still. Why did he warn you? That is what you should be asking. Elara's pulse quickened as the meaning settled into place. If Cale believed I had poisoned him, why would his last conscious thought be to stop me from drinking the same thing? Rowan stared at Elara for one long second before turning toward Mira. Tell the physician we are reconstructing the final 10 minutes before Cale lost consciousness. Mira hurried back toward the royal chambers. Elara remained behind the guarded doorway, forcing herself to remember details instead of imagining what was happening on the other side of the hall. The tea arrived after the meeting started, she said. Rowan opened his notebook. How long after? Maybe 12 minutes. Cale had already reviewed Hart's letter and the page about the Vale name. Who was in the room when the tray arrived? You. Mira. Councilman Hale. 2 council aides. The servant. Rowan wrote quickly. Anyone else? Elara closed her eyes. She could see the chamber again. Papers spread across polished wood. Cale beside her. The silver tray waiting several feet away. One of the aides left to retrieve a document. Which aide? The younger man with the gray tie. Rowan nodded. Daniel Mercer. Elara continued. The servant placed the tray on the side table. No one drank anything immediately. Then what happened? Hale questioned the annex records. You opened the copied registry. Cale asked for the page containing the emergency protocols. Rowan stopped writing. You are certain? Yes. Why does that matter? I do not know yet. Elara pressed her fingers against her temple. Then Mira moved the Hart documents away from the tea because she was afraid something might spill. Cale kept reading. I picked up the cup and brought it to him. Did you drink from the same pot? No. Rowan looked toward the corridor. Did anyone? Elara opened her eyes. No. The answer changed something in his expression. Then Cale's warning may not mean he believed the entire pot was unsafe. He was looking at his cup when he said it, meaning he may have noticed something specific after drinking. Elara nodded. A taste. A smell. Something. Rowan closed the notebook. That does not clear you. I know. But it changes the question. From whether I poisoned him to when the cup was altered. Rowan gave a small nod. For the first time since Cale collapsed, Elara felt the investigation move instead of simply closing around her. Mira returned several minutes later. The physician says the timing helps. Based on when the symptoms appeared, exposure most likely occurred in the council chamber, not at breakfast. Elara exhaled slowly. Is Cale improving? The physician adjusted the treatment. He is still unconscious, but his condition has stabilized again. Relief weakened Elara's knees for half a second. She gripped the back of the chair. Rowan noticed, but said nothing. There is more, Mira continued. The physician tested the remaining tea in the pot. Rowan looked up. And No trace of the compound. Silence filled the sitting room. Elara looked toward the guarded door. Only his cup. Apparently, Mira said. Rowan immediately called for the cup, pitcher, tray, and service records to remain secured. Then someone did not contaminate the tea in the kitchen. The substance was introduced after the cup was poured. Elara thought of the servant placing the tray down. The council members arguing. The aide leaving. Everyone watching the heart documents instead of the tea. Which means someone in that room had an opportunity. Rowan nodded. Including you. Including me. She did not look away. A guard appeared at the doorway carrying a sealed evidence envelope. Commander Rowan, this was recovered from the service records. Rowan opened it and unfolded a requisition form. His eyes moved across the page, then stopped. What is it? Elara asked. He turned the document toward her. The form requested a small quantity of the same plant compound identified in Kale's cup. At the bottom was a signature. Elara Vale. Elara stared at it. The handwriting looked almost perfect. Almost. Then she noticed the date. Her fear gave way to something colder. That cannot be mine. Rowan's eyes sharpened. Why? Elara pointed to the date beside the signature. Because when someone supposedly signed that in my name, I was with you and Kale at the old medical annex. Rowan checked the date again. You are right. At 9:40 that morning, you were inside the annex with Kale and me. Mira leaned closer to the requisition. Then the signature was forged. Most likely, Rowan said. But we established that with evidence, not assumption. Elara looked at the document. Whoever had written her name had copied the shape of her letters carefully, even the long curve she sometimes used beneath the V in Vale. Where would someone get a sample of my signature? She asked. Mira answered first. Marriage records. Household authorizations. Correspondence. So almost anywhere in Blackstone. Rowan nodded. Which means the forgery itself may tell us more than the signature. He placed the requisition beside the earlier forged memorandum from the sealed evidence file. At first, Elara saw only 2 official documents. Then Rowan pointed to the lower corners. Same paper stock. Mira frowned. Blackstone uses that paper in 6 departments. Look closer. Rowan indicated a faint gray line near the edge. This batch came from the Western Administrative Office. It was replaced 3 months ago because the watermark was printed slightly off-center. Elara felt the pieces shifting again. The same office connected to the forged memorandum. Yes. Rowan turned the requisition over. And the same office that processed temporary council access during the royal feast. Myra's expression tightened. Someone is using old administrative supplies because they are easier to remove without appearing in current inventory. Rowan looked toward the guard. Find out who still has access to that storage. The guard left immediately. Elara studied the requisition again. Something still bothered her. If someone wanted this discovered, why make the date so easy to disprove? Rowan looked at her. Explain. They knew we were at the annex. Half the palace knew where the king went. If the goal was to create perfect evidence, they would choose a date when I was alone. Mira slowly nodded. Unless whoever made it did not care whether the document survived a careful investigation. Elara looked toward Kale's closed chamber. They only needed it to survive the first accusation. Silence followed. Rowan's gaze sharpened. Long enough to keep you away from Kale. And long enough for the council to start asking what happens if he cannot rule. Before Rowan could answer, Councilman Hale appeared in the doorway. That question is no longer theoretical. Elara turned. Hale carried a sealed folder bearing the Northern Council crest. The physician has informed us that His Majesty may remain unconscious for several hours. Stable hours, Mira said. He is being treated. And Blackstone cannot operate without authority. Hale placed the folder on the table. Emergency protocol allows the council to assume limited administrative powers if the Alpha King becomes temporarily incapacitated. Rowan did not touch the folder. Kale has been unconscious for less than 2 hours. The protocol requires preparation before activation. Elara watched Hale rather than the document. How quickly did you find that? His eyes shifted toward her. I know the laws I swore to uphold. So does Rowan. She turned to him. Did you know this protocol could be activated today? Rowan's expression became unreadable. Not under these circumstances. Hale straightened. Lady Elara is hardly in a position to question counsel. Procedure. Then answer me instead, Rowan said. Who requested that file? Hale paused. Only briefly. But Elara saw it. The council secretary retrieved it. When Rowan asked. After the king collapsed. Elara looked at the folder, then at the forged requisition bearing her name. A false signature. A planted vial. A poisoned cup. An emergency law produced almost immediately afterward. The pattern was becoming too deliberate to ignore. Someone does not want you to believe I did this, she said quietly. Rowan looked at her. What do you mean? Elara touched the forged requisition with one finger. They want you to prove it. Alara's words remained in the room. Rowan looked from the forged requisition to the emergency protocol folder. You think the evidence was designed to be challenged? Eventually, Elara said. But not immediately. The cup makes me suspicious. The vial makes me look prepared. The requisition gives everyone something official to point at. By the time you discover the mistakes, I have already been separated from Kale, and the council has already begun discussing emergency authority. Hill's expression tightened. You are building a conspiracy from coincidence. Then let the evidence prove me wrong. Rowan opened the emergency folder. When was this protocol last reviewed? Hale answered carefully. Years ago. That was not my question. Rowan examined the first page. Mira, bring the current royal code and the archived council amendments. Hale stepped forward. Commander, the king's condition requires action. Then we will act correctly. Rowan's voice stayed calm. No authority changes hands until I know which version of this protocol you are trying to invoke. Hale said nothing. Elara noticed that silence. So did Mira. Before she left, the royal physician appeared at the doorway. Elara stood immediately. Kale. Stable. Still unconscious. The physician held a small report. We completed a more precise analysis of the compound. Rowan turned toward him. What did you find? The amount detected in the remaining liquid was significant, but the concentration does not appear consistent with an attempt to guarantee death. Elara felt her breath catch. Then what was it meant to do? I cannot tell you intent. Medically, I can only tell you the likely effect. He glanced toward Kale's chambers. Loss of consciousness. Severe weakness. Temporary inability to function normally. With treatment, recovery is expected. Hale frowned. You are saying the king was deliberately incapacitated? I am saying the dose was capable of incapacitating him. Intent belongs to your investigation. Rowan looked at Elara. The same question passed between them without words. Why keep the Alpha King alive, but unable to rule? Mira returned carrying 2 heavy volumes and a narrow archive box. Rowan spread the documents across the table. For several minutes, only turning pages broke the silence. Then he stopped. Here. The emergency protocol in Hale's folder had been amended 19 years earlier. Elara moved closer, but remained on her side of the table. 19 years. The number had become impossible to hear without thinking of Clara, Dr. Hart, and the child who had left the old medical annex before sunrise. Rowan compared the amendment with the current code. The modern version limits temporary council authority to routine administration. This older amendment is broader. How broad? Elara asked. It allows the council to suspend certain royal investigations during incapacitation if they are considered politically destabilizing. Alara's eyes went to Hart's records, including an investigation into an unknown bloodline. Hale answered before Rowan could. Potentially. The room went still. Elara understood then. The substance in Kale's cup might not have been the real weapon. His silence was. Without Kale awake, someone could isolate his bride, suspend the investigation, and bury the questions surrounding the Crescent records behind legal procedure. Rowan reached for the forged requisition again and placed it beside the false memorandum from the royal feast. Same paper stock. Similar administrative phrasing. Same unnecessary reference mark in the lower margin. Mira leaned closer. The number after the department code? Yes. Current Blackstone forms stopped using that mark years ago. Elara stared at both documents. So whoever forged them learned the old system. Or worked inside it, Rowan said. Hale's face changed almost imperceptibly. Elara caught it. Rowan did too. A knock came from the corridor. One of the guards entered with a storage access ledger. Commander, you asked who still has access to the Western Administrative Archive. Rowan took the ledger. His eyes moved down the list. Then stopped. How many? Mira asked. 4 active credentials. Anyone from this morning's meeting? Rowan looked toward Hale. Yes. Hale's jaw tightened. Do not mistake access for guilt. I do not, Rowan replied. That is why I investigate. Elara looked at the emergency protocol again. Poisoned tea. Forged evidence. An unconscious king. A law changed 19 years ago. For the first time, she wondered whether accusing her had ever been the true objective. Rowan, she said quietly, if Kale stays unconscious long enough for this protocol to take effect, what happens to the heart investigation? Rowan looked at the old amendment. His answer was immediate. It can be suspended. Then someone may only need Kale unconscious long enough to make the truth disappear again. Elara looked at the old amendment while Rowan closed the archive volume. 19 years earlier, someone had expanded the Northern Council's emergency authority. 19 years earlier, Clara had taken a hidden child from the medical annex before sunrise. Elara refused to call that proof, but she could no longer dismiss the timing. Mira studied the amendment. How long before temporary authority can be activated? Rowan checked the language carefully. The council may begin formal proceedings once the royal physician certifies that the Alpha King cannot perform his duties. Actual authority transfers only after the required review. Hale straightened. Which is why we should begin now. No, Rowan said. Which is why we verify every step now. Hale's patience finally cracked. Blackstone cannot wait indefinitely for one man to wake. Elara turned toward him. He has been unconscious for hours, not weeks. Hale looked at her coldly. And you remain the primary suspect. Before Elara could answer, the physician returned. His expression was tired but controlled. His Majesty remains stable. The treatment is working, but I cannot predict when he will regain full consciousness. Hale immediately lifted the protocol folder. Then certify his temporary incapacity. The physician did not take it. I will certify his medical condition. I will not interpret council law. Rowan almost smiled. Good answer. Hale left to summon the remaining council members. The moment the door closed, Elara looked at the physician. Before Kale collapsed, he warned me not to drink from the table. Rowan told me. Could he have noticed the compound? Possibly. Some plant compounds have a noticeable bitterness or scent. Elara searched her memory. Kale had lifted the cup, paused after the first swallow, then stared into it. He looked at the cup before he looked at me. Rowan nodded, which supports the possibility that his warning concerned the drink, not you. The physician gathered his papers. If he wakes, I need to know the first thing he remembers feeling. Taste, dizziness, anything unusual. And if he does not wake before the council review? Elara asked. No one answered immediately. That silence told her enough. She looked toward Kale's chamber door. Let me speak to him. Rowan's expression hardened slightly. You are still under investigation. I cannot allow you unrestricted access to the king. Then do not give me unrestricted access. Let me speak from the doorway. Rowan looked toward the physician. Any medical risk? Not if she remains at a distance and follows my instructions. Rowan considered it, then nodded toward the guards. She stays behind the threshold. Both of you remain between her and the bed. Mira and the physician stay inside as witnesses. No physical contact. Elara accepted without argument. That is enough. The guards opened the outer chamber, but did not leave their positions. Elara stopped exactly where Rowan instructed, several feet beyond Kale's bed and behind the guarded threshold. Kale lay beneath a dark blanket, pale but breathing evenly. Only days earlier, she had learned that his distance had never meant rejection. Now she understood how frightening distance could feel when it was no longer chosen. Kale, she said softly. No response. Rowan is turning Blackstone upside down, so you will be pleased to know nothing has changed. Mira lowered her eyes, hiding the beginning of a smile. Elara kept her attention on Kale. They think I poisoned you. Her voice remained steady. I do not need you to wake up to defend me. Rowan will follow the evidence, and I will stand on my own feet. She paused. But I need you to remember why you told me not to drink. Kale did not move. The physician watched him carefully. Footsteps approached from the corridor. A council clerk stopped beside Rowan. Commander, the Northern Council has assembled. They are requesting the physician's certification and immediate review of the emergency amendment. Rowan looked toward Kale, then back at the clerk. Tell them we are coming. Elara stepped away from the threshold. Thank you. She turned to leave. Behind her came a faint sound, barely more than breath. The physician moved closer to the bed. Elara froze, but did not cross the threshold. Kale's fingers shifted against the blanket. His eyes remained closed, but his lips moved. One word escaped, quiet and unmistakable. Elara. Elara stopped before she reached the doorway. For one suspended second, nobody in the room moved. Kale had spoken her name so quietly that she almost wondered if fear had created the sound for her. Then the physician leaned over him. "Your Majesty, can you hear me?" Kale's eyelids shifted. His breathing remained slow, but his face tightened with the effort of waking. "Elara," he said again. This time Rowan heard it clearly. So did Mira. The council clerk standing outside the door heard it too. Elara took one step toward the bed and stopped. "I am here." Kale opened his eyes. They were unfocused at first, moving past the physician and Rowan before finding her. Something in his expression eased. The physician checked his pulse and asked him several simple questions. Kale answered his name, recognized Blackstone, and correctly identified Rowan. "Do not make him speak more than necessary," the physician warned. Footsteps gathered in the corridor. Hale had returned with 3 council members, drawn by the news that the Alpha King was conscious. "Your Majesty," Hale said from the doorway, "there is an urgent matter requiring clarification." Rowan stepped between him and the bed. The physician decides what questions are appropriate. Kale's gaze remained on Elara. Hale lowered his voice. "Lady Elara carried the cup from which you drank. Evidence connected to the substance was later found in her rooms. Do you remember who gave you the cup?" Kale's eyes sharpened slightly. "Elara." Silence fell. Elara felt every person in the room turn toward her. Hale exhaled as though the answer settled everything. "Then the king confirms it." Kale frowned. "Confirms what?" "That Lady Elara gave you the drink." Kale looked past Rowan and finally seemed to notice the distance between himself and Elara. "Why is my wife standing over there?" Hale hesitated. "For your protection." Kale's expression changed. Even weakened, his voice carried unmistakable authority. "From Elara?" No one answered. Kale looked at her again. "Come here." Elara did not move immediately. Not because she was afraid of him, but because the room had spent hours telling her that crossing that distance was forbidden. Kale seemed to understand. "Please." She walked toward him and stopped beside the bed. He did not reach for her. Even now, he left that choice untouched. "They think I poisoned you," she said. Kale closed his eyes briefly, as though gathering strength. When he opened them again, he looked directly at Hale. "She did not poison me." Hale's certainty disappeared. "Your Majesty, a vial was found in her room." "Then investigate the vial. A requisition bears her signature." "Then investigate the signature." Rowan's mouth almost curved. Hale tried again. "But she carried your cup." "Yes." Kale's voice weakened, but not his meaning. "After it was already poured." Elara leaned closer. "Why did you tell me not to drink?" Kale stared toward the ceiling, searching his memory. The first swallow tasted wrong. The physician immediately stepped nearer. "Wrong how?" "Bitter. Sharper than the tea should have been." Kale paused to breathe. "I looked at the cup. There was residue along the inside edge." Rowan's attention sharpened. "Did you see it before Elara brought the cup?" "No." "Did you believe Elara had put it there?" Kale turned his head toward her. "No," one word, absolute and calm. Elara felt something inside her finally release. Kale continued. "I warned her because I did not know whether her cup had been altered too." Rowan looked toward Hale. "That supports what the remaining tea already established. The pot was clean. His Majesty's cup was individually contaminated." Hale's face had gone pale. "It does not identify who did it." "No," Elara said, "but it identifies what did not happen." The physician raised a hand. "That is enough questioning for now." Kale looked at Rowan before closing his eyes again. "Do not let them suspend the investigation." Rowan went still. "Which investigation?" Kale opened his eyes once more. "Heart." Then he looked at Elara. "Someone moved my cup while we were reading the emergency protocol." Rowan's expression changed. "You saw them?" Kale shook his head faintly. "No. But when I reached for it again, it was on the other side of the heart file." Elara remembered the crowded table. The documents. The aides moving around them. The cup changing position while everyone argued about records written 19 years ago. Rowan turned toward the council members. "No emergency authority will be reviewed until every person in that chamber is questioned." Hale started to object, but Rowan was already looking at the storage access ledger. Then his eyes stopped on one name. "Daniel Mercer," he said quietly. Elara remembered the younger council aide leaving the room moments before the tea was served. Rowan looked toward the guards. "Find him." A guard answered from the corridor. "Commander, we already tried." Rowan's gaze hardened. And Daniel Mercer left Blackstone less than 20 minutes after the king collapsed. Daniel Mercer's disappearance changed the room more than Cale's denial had. Suspicion no longer pointed in only one direction. Rowan ordered Blackstone's gates monitored and every record connected to Mercer secured before anyone could alter it. Hale remained near the doorway, his confidence replaced by careful silence. Elara stayed beside Cale until the physician asked everyone except Mira to give him time to rest. Before she stepped away, Cale opened his eyes. Elara. She looked down at him. I am here. You believed me when I could not explain. Her throat tightened. You warned me when you could barely speak. Cale's gaze softened. I knew you were not the danger. Elara wanted to take his hand, but she remembered the physician's request for rest and simply nodded. Outside the chamber, Rowan was waiting with a folder recovered from Mercer's desk. We found copies of the emergency amendment, he said, and access records showing Mercer entered the Western Administrative Archive 3 times during the past month. Mira joined them. The same archive containing the old paper used for the forged requisition. Yes. Does that prove he poisoned Cale? Elara asked. No, Rowan said immediately. It proves access and opportunity. Nothing more. Elara appreciated the answer. They had spent too many days surrounded by people who treated suspicion as certainty. Rowan opened another document. But this matters. Mercer requested the 19-year-old emergency amendment 6 days ago. Elara stared at him. Before Cale collapsed. Before anyone had a legitimate reason to expect the protocol would be needed. Hale stepped closer. Mercer was a council aide. Researching old law was part of his work. Rowan looked at him. Then perhaps you can explain why he also requested the sealed appendix. Hale stopped. What appendix? Rowan unfolded a copied index sheet. The original amendment had an attachment. It was removed from the current archive years ago. Elara felt the old mystery returning beneath the new one. What was it about? The index does not say, only that it concerned continuity of royal authority during disputed recognition. Cale's warning echoed in her memory. Do not let them suspend the investigation. Disputed recognition of what? She asked. Rowan shook his head. We do not know. Mira arrived with another archive box brought from the council records room. Inside, beneath routine legal correspondence, they found a damaged copy of the missing appendix. Most of the first page had faded beyond recovery. Rowan read what remained. In the event that the reigning alpha is incapacitated before confirmation is completed, council authority may be temporarily extended until the sentence disappeared beneath a water stain. Elara leaned closer. A second paragraph survived near the bottom. There. Mira pointed to it. Rowan read slowly. The concealed heir shall remain unnamed until the rightful Alpha King is confirmed. No one spoke. Elara felt the words settle with terrible familiarity. Hart's record. Clara's warning. The Vale name. 19 years of hidden documents. That phrase was in the medical records, she said. Almost exactly, Rowan replied. Hale stared at the page. That cannot be connected to today. Maybe not, Elara said. But Mercer searched for it 6 days before Cale was poisoned. Rowan turned to the final page. A handwritten notation had been added beside the original council seal. There is another instruction. Elara's pulse quickened. Read it. Rowan did. Confirmation requires the living Alpha King and the concealed heir to appear together before the royal record. Mira looked toward Cale's chamber. Elara understood before anyone said it aloud. If Cale remained unconscious, confirmation could not happen. If Elara was publicly branded as the woman who poisoned him, she could be removed from his side without anyone questioning why. The poisoning had never needed to end Cale's life. It only needed to separate 2 people long enough for an old secret to remain buried. Rowan closed the appendix. We still cannot prove Mercer acted alone, or that he administered the compound. Then we do not claim it, Elara said. We follow what we can prove. Rowan nodded. From inside the chamber came Cale's weakened but unmistakable voice. Elara. She turned immediately. The physician opened the door and allowed her inside. Cale looked exhausted, but awake. Elara stopped beside his bed and held out her hand. This time, she was the one offering. Cale placed his hand gently in hers. They found something, she said. What? A rule written 19 years ago. His fingers tightened. Slightly around hers. About you. I do not know yet. She looked back at Rowan holding the damaged appendix. But someone may have poisoned you to make sure we never found out.